Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your
Times in the U.S. jumped again. The El Paso attack was the deadliest at the hands of a white supremacist in half a century.
One of the largest upticks in the history of hate crime reporting.
Knock the crap out of him, would you?
The suspect yelled the word Trump as he hit the East African man.
Part of the problem is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore.
More than 50 criminal cases where Donald Trump was explicitly invoked in relation to violent acts.
When you see these caravans, this is an invasion.
A racist manifesto posted claimed this attack is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas.
The president and his words appearing in scores of police reports and courtrooms.
The irresponsible rhetoric of our president, who has used the pulpit of the presidency to divide us by race and color, has made America a more dangerous environment than, frankly, I have ever seen.
Really, American Pack is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Oh, my God. Happy Monday, everybody. Thought we'd start off right there. It's just right there because we're now in election season. Obviously, Donald Trump has gone back to holding rallies indoors in the middle of a pandemic in open defiance of state regulations and his own administration's pandemic health guidelines. He had people in Henderson, Nevada. Oh, my God. I have friends there. I'm so worried about my friends there. I can't even tell you. He had indoor rallies over a rally over the weekend where he suggested that the election will be rigged. They should throw out the votes in Nevada because they have a Democratic governor, and the Democratic governor is going to rig this. He is talking to Judge Jeanine. I told you on Friday that I had heard that he did a sit down with wackadoodle Judge Jeanine and was going to invoke the Insurrection Act in his speech, in his comments. Well, he did, and he said that he's ready to pull the trigger if need be. She asked, when do you call the troops? He said, okay, we'll just wait. And then I mean, the violence that he is encouraging is beyond the pale. And this is all in preparation for a president who can't win re-election. This is all in preparation of Donald Trump slipping into authoritarianism, and putting America squarely in that category of governments under the leadership of somebody who clearly is not an authority on anything. Think about that. If our founding fathers would have foreseen Donald Trump, I think they would have asked Mad King George to take us back. I really do. I don't think he would have, any of the founding fathers would have put us through this, because this is where we are. And a lot of the serious journalists are warning you that Donald Trump is going to do this. Donald Trump is warning you that Donald Trump is going to do this. Donald Trump said he's going to play dirty. Donald Trump told Judge Jeanine that he's sort of kind of ready to, she's like, well, what if there are protests about there's always the Insurrection Act.
Let's say there are threats. They say that they're going to threaten riots if they lose on election night, assuming we get a winner on election night. What are you going to do?
We'll put them down very quickly if they do that. We have the right to do that. We have the power to do that if we want. Look, it's called insurrection. We just send in and we do it very easy. I mean, it's very easy. I'd rather not do that because there's no reason for it. But if we had to, we'd do that and put it down within minutes.
Extrajudicial killings. He would put you down if you were protesting in minutes. And he said this also at his rally. He was talking about his defense of Kyle Rittenhouse, and he was, the man is just, he's bad. He's a bad man. And even if we could get rid of him this November, there's a chance that he'll be like herpes. He is like herpes. He is. I mean, even when you get rid of it, you never know when it's going to flare up. And having it is a total embarrassment to the whole, to you and as you make your way through the world. I mean, this is just unbelievable to me. But she wanted to know, when will you call in the troops?
When is that change? When do you cross the Rubicon?
Well, in Kenosha, they asked men.
Right.
And we did a job like nobody's ever seen before.
But if they don't ask you in, there
then
are
you're not allowed to
American
do it
people who
unless you
want
do insurrection, in which case it's just not big enough for insurrection.
You won't do insurrection before election
You don't
day.
need it. You don't know.
Not yet.
Oh, I'd be willing to do it in a heartbeat if you needed it, but we don't need it. Our National
When
Guard.
do you need it?
Our National Guard is so good and so tough.
But they've
and
got
by
to
the
be
way,
asked.
police departments in places that we're talking about, Seattle, we were going into Seattle, and they solved the problem the night before we got there.
Yeah,
we were
they
getting
didn't
ready
want
to
you
go.
there.
They heard we were going in.
I want to play you a serious journalist, okay? Fareed Zakaria is a serious journalist. And he put the warning up also, okay? I mean, I've put this warning up. I've said red alert. I've said, your hair should be on fire. I have told you that we're in the perilous fight. We are. We're there. And serious journalists from across platforms, writers, researchers, think tanks, political analysts, historians, they're all telling you something. They're all trying to warn us.
All of us need to start preparing for a deeply worrying scenario on November 3rd. It's not some outlandish fantasy, but rather the most likely course of events based on what we know today. On election night, Donald Trump will be ahead significantly in a majority of states, including the swing states that will decide the election. Then over the next few days, mail-in ballots will be counted and the numbers could shift in Joe Biden's favor. But will Trump accept that outcome? Will America? First, an explanation of why this is the most likely situation based on what we know now. Several surveys have found that because of the pandemic, in-person and mail-in ballots will show a huge partisan divide. In a CNN poll, 87% of Trump voters said they prefer to vote in person versus just 47% of Biden voters. In another poll by the Democratic data firm Hawkfish, only 19% of Trump voters plan to vote by mail, while 69% of Biden voters said the same. The firm modeled various scenarios and found that based on recent polling, if just 15% of mail-in ballots are counted on election night, Trump would appear to have 408 electoral votes compared to Biden's 130.
Look at that.
But 4 days later, assuming 75% of mail-in ballots are counted, the lead would flip to Biden, and once all ballots are counted, Biden would have 334 electoral votes to Trump's 204. This is based on current polling. You don't have to believe in models to understand that this is a likely scenario. As David Graham writes in an Atlantic essay, on the night of the 2018 midterm elections, the results seem very disappointing for Democrats. They appear to have gained far fewer seats in the House and Senate than the polls predicted, a replay of 2016. Except that as provisional and mail-in ballots were counted, the results changed.
And provisional ballots, mail-in ballots, they're the last to be counted. And so this is where we're going. We're going to go to November 3rd. Obviously, we're on our way to November 3rd, barring, the world burning down. Just look at how out of control things have gotten. I mean, we have... This is pretty amazing. You have violence all over the place, a president that encourages violence all over the place. California, Oregon, Washington State on fire, wildfires everywhere, record heat waves. You got another hurricane plowing its way. We had Saturday night, that weather that we had, Brett, that was Tropical Storm Sally. It was actually a tropical depression number 19. It wasn't even named when it passed over us. This thing is big. It's wet and it moves really stinking slow. It's a sit and spin. And you know about Harvey. Harvey was a sit and spin in Houston. Well, so now you got this one moving 7 miles an hour going right towards New Orleans. And by the time it gets to New Orleans, what we experienced as System 19 is going to be a Category 2 hurricane. And we're all in the middle of a freaking plague. What more do you need to see to know that he's the Antichrist? We're in trouble. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.